Good evening to our online church. We're glad that you're here, and we're kind of sitting around gabbing a little bit. And Jeff reminded me, yesterday was an anniversary in the life of our church. 2 years ago yesterday, I'm going to take my keys out of my pocket. 2 years ago yesterday was our first online everything when COVID came. And so what's funny to me was in February, I had taught a 4-week series on I Love My Church. And the series was about giving. And it wasn't about money. It was, And so the first Sunday in March was that Sunday. And so I went from having a crowd to having a light. And so the joke was, you teach on giving and no one comes back to church. And so it was really strange. Do you remember, Jeff? They limited us to 6 people. And we did the math, and we had just enough people, and it was so strange. Yes, and everybody was up there. So I'm like Dr. Criswell said, I'm preaching to wood, and I'm really proud to say this, and I mentioned this to Josh and Jeff yesterday, is you never know what today's visions will impact tomorrow's need. We started webcasting 14 years ago. We had a brother come into the fellowship. He had some background in broadcasting and things. And he said, Pastor, I just really feel we need to be on the air. He said, I know how to do it. I can get the equipment. I'll build a booth. And just like I always say is, sick 'em. And he did. And I know that Highland Terrace and Wesley Methodist have been on the cable access for years. But I think we may have been the first webcasting church in Greenville. If we weren't the first, we were a close second. And so he brought that medium into existence, and it just, has crawled along. And we did a year of mobile, and we built a mobile broadcast station. It's still up there. I don't know if I can ever get rid of that, Jeff. But it was a box, and we built a little periscope. You crank it and go, and we put the camera on it. So the whole thing ran out of this box. It was beautiful. It was so authentic life. It was simple. And then, we came here, and we had the old equipment up there, and it was a terrible angle, but it did the job. What COVID led us to do was up our game. Because if people were going to be consuming this medium, it needed to be the best that we could produce. Now, we weren't going to go out and spend gajillions of dollars, because that's just not what ALF do. It is not our nature. And so 2 things happened. One was that camera, which is HD. It's a great camera, was purchased. And we found a broadcast platform, StreamYard, that revolutionized what we were able to do. And I need to do the math on what it costs us for each broadcast. I'm going to say, I think fairly confidently, that each webcast that we do costs less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Now, not we got someone walking past the window there. Not just, the Pike, leave room for cream. I mean, like my drink, like a caramel macchiato. I would bet probably $5 to lower. Okay, Jeff says lower. Oh, okay. Good evening, Rick. Good evening, buddy. Good to see you guys. And so for that, we can put the gospel to anyone in the world available. They could go to Twitter and watch it. That weirds me out. I didn't realize Twitter would do that. Oh yeah, we're about to reach a platform. Right. We're about to reach a milestone in our podcast. We're two podcasts away from reaching 500 podcasts. And I'm going to be bringing some information, and that is absolutely going to blow your mind. What this medium does. And it's so simple. We have a digital recorder that someone starts up there and stops. We edit it on GarageBand, which is a free app program on the Mac. And we load that bad boy up. And when I tell you the number of downloads in a couple of weeks, anywho, it's incredible. So, well, it's great to see you guys. I'm glad that you're there. Buddy and Rick, I'm glad that you're there. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And Sunday was a great time. If you weren't able to be here Sunday, you missed a great event. It excites me because when you can have an event like the installment of new leadership, it tells you that your church is moving forward. We installed 3 new men, and that's exciting. And then we were able to honor Jeff for 25 years of eldering, copyright, eldering. And man, I tell you what, I was so excited about that day all the way back in December, because that's when we started talking about it. Well, not you. And I said, Josh, we can do this. I said, we can get it. And when I found out what his anniversary date was, that's when we go, okay, right here, this is when we're going to do it. And we were able to work around him, in communications, which is not easy. So it was wonderful. It was worth everything to me that when your picture came up, you may not have seen it, but Jeff was sitting over there where he typically does. He told me that he had gone back to his seat because I said, I have one more thing, and he realized he had 5 to 7 minutes. I don't know what that means, and so he's sitting right there, and when his picture comes up on the screen, he does this because he knew. So, but it was awesome. But it is an exciting thing that we can have men and families who will serve, and it's exciting about the future because everyone comes and it multiplies the ministry of the church. And so it was just a wonderful day, and just so happy to be able to do it. It was a worthwhile thing to do. So a few things to remember. Easter Sunday season is coming. Palm Sunday will be our communion service. We have the Grand Prix next Wednesday, correct? Right? I think, yeah. So, and then I think the Wednesday after next is Easter egg hunt, I think. But we have both of those coming up, and we'll not hold our class in here. We'll all commit to being a part of that. And then communion, and then Easter, and so it's going to be good. We have a special friend coming on Sunday. His name's Alex. Alex, I have known a long time. Alex was the youth pastor for Brother Earl. And so we go way back. Well, he works for the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention. And he's going to be on campus. He's going to be visiting with us in the 9 o'clock hour just to help us better understand what this ministry partner does in the state of Texas, because you have a fingerprint in it. Part of what you give goes to help them do what they do. You're going to love Alex. He's a hoot. And you're going to love getting to know your ministry partner better. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. So if you recall, Sunday before last, we talked about being on mission. And it means to be intentional, with intentionality. And it's so vitally important. How much do we really accomplish by accident? Not much. I mean, we can accomplish a lot of stuff, but is it, stuff we want to accomplish, kind of thing. Intentionality. Now, as a sanguine, my life's like this. I mean, it's a party all the time. And typically, sanguines are not organizers. They're not logistics. It's counterintuitive. I'm a weirdo, but you know that. I love it when a logistics plan comes through. I love it. When, like Sunday, we had this logistics, and then when I said, and the reception next door, Jeff goes, well, there's nothing next door. Oh, yes, there was, because magic happens. And I love it when a plan comes together. The really important things in life take a plan, take an intentionality. And so we talked about being on mission. If you recall, the story we looked at was when 4 friends brought their paralytic friend to Jesus, because either it was announced or rumor had gotten out that Jesus was healing people. We have the idea that it was probably an announced meeting, because the scripture says that he was healing. And they became on mission. They wanted to get their friend to Jesus. The man on the mat had a mission. He wanted to get healed. The Pharisees and the local teachers who came to see Jesus, they were on a mission. Part of it was justified. Who are you? What are you teaching? And are you acceptable? And not everything on their mission was acceptable and things. So, and then we talked about the barriers. We talked about the building, the location, and we talked about sometimes the location being a challenge. And we mentioned that even a church building can be a challenge, especially if you've never been in it. And our building, as beautiful as it is on the inside, looks a little peculiar on the outside. Wouldn't you agree? If you walk in here and you go, oh, this place is so big, because on the outside it doesn't look big at all. But it can be barriers. And we talked about some of the barriers. The building barrier can be the people. Too many people, you can't get in. If we, like Sunday, if we had 3,000 new members, that'd be problematic. It'd be a blessing, but it'd be problematic. The people and their attitudes. The people and... So Josh shared with me, we were visiting, and he said that he and his family, some years ago when he was still living at home, went to visit a church. First time in the church. And one of the ladies in the church, who happened to be a little bit older, walked up to Gary and said, "Where's your tie?" Now, do you think Mr. Slinkard and his family went back? It's 50-50. Take a shot. No. I mean, because that tells you where the importance of me lies, doesn't it? It's somewhere below dress code, right? So perceptions, practices. One of the things about a church is you can be so churchy, people get intimidated or they don't understand. I don't keep away from using church vocabulary, but I'm always intentional to try to explain it, because you can't throw away what we are or the vocabulary that's most accurate, but you can help people understand it. Transubstantiationism. That is the Catholic belief that in the prayer of the priest, the wine is transformed literally into the blood of Christ, and the bread or the cracker is transformed into the literal body of Christ. That's the reason, if you ever have a chance to visit at a local or at a Catholic church, when they take the Eucharist, that's what they call it, the priest will never leave any crumbs or any juice. Because, what? It's the literal body and blood of Christ. So, now it's really problematic if you're old school and you use wine and someone overpoured. It can be problematic. So, but the practices, why do we do what we do? Traditions are a wonderful thing. They have a power and a purpose, but sometimes traditions can get ahead of people, and that's problematic. We talked about being patient. We need to be patient because we all don't arrive at the same place in the same condition. And one of the things I think about every Sunday is what I must have looked like the first time I walked into Park Street Baptist Church. Because I know what I thought and the way I acted. And I am so thankful for Barbara Sampson and so many others who were patient with me. Because the truth is, there may have been a little bit of hope that they would run me off, because then I would have an excuse. When I was out there chasing the world, I said, I got drugged to church and all they were hypocrites. Well, that's all I chose to see. And that helped to validate what I wanted to do. But at Park Street, I not only got to see Christ, but I got to see Christ's likeness. And that's transformative, right? And so that's why we've got to strive to be patient. Patient with the Lord, because he does say to wait. Patient with each other, because none of us are perfect. Speaking of that, does anyone remember the 2 buckets from Sunday? What is it, Miss Vicki? That's right. Gas and water. We all carry 2 buckets. And when we come up on the flames of life, the sparks of life, whichever bucket we choose, either helps to extinguish or exacerbates the situation. It's at work. It's in your marriage. Listen, you know which bucket you've used if your bride's face does this. You
don't use the $4 a gallon bucket.
That's right. It's cheaper to use water, isn't it? That's right. Absolutely. And then we talked about people being the barrier. The people failed to see the need. It's a true statement when you agree that we all have needs. Some of us feel more comfortable in sharing those needs. Some of us at times will display those needs. But most of us are pretty good at hiding. And we're kind of, it depends on who you are and what the situation is and all those kind of things. And the challenge that we face is at least trying to keep our eyes open and being sensitive to where people are. That's where patience and seeing needs are the opposite side of the same coin. Because we can read countenance, can't we? Holly Hempstead, did we ever decide if she broke her tailbone for sure or not? Okay. So when she asked, her son-in-law thinks she's faking. But I didn't realize she had this accident. She came by campus and we were visiting, and her face is usually a smile. And this was not. And I said, you look very uncomfortable, if I may say that. And that's when she told me about the accident and the tailbone. The reason they don't know if it was broke or not, because it doesn't matter. If it is, you can't do anything. If it isn't, it still hurts. So why pay the doctor, right? But if we look, if we take time to listen. Now that's difficult, because on Sunday mornings, we're kind of. But if we look and we listen and we're patient, we can help ourselves see the needs of people. What's one of the challenges about responding to the needs of people, both stated and perceived? What's a challenge about trying to respond to the needs of someone? They may not want help. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah. Gay says they're stubborn. Ask my granddaughter. My granddaughter knows everything. And it is frustrating. But we're working through it. Yeah. You know what? Not everybody's at a place where they know they need or they want help. That's true. What else? What else can be a barrier to responding to needs? Lack of knowledge. How do I do it? Right? Ronnie says lack of knowledge. Because there's a right and a wrong way. Right? The right action at the wrong time, no bueno.
What is it?
The wrong action at the right time, no bueno. But the right action at the right time, But that timing, man, yeah. What else? Yes. Yes. Jeff says sometimes people might be sandbagging. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know how many times I visit with people here and they come and they have their perceived needs, and I'm sure there's other legitimate needs, and I'm getting their dissertation on war and peace, and I say, please, can we just get to the ask? And I'm not trying to be mean, but they know where they're going, and I know where they're going. Let's just get there. Because in that, there's honesty. You wouldn't believe how many people stop by ALF, and they either left Florida going to California, or they left California going to Florida. And in Greenville, they need help with gas.
Is there a gas pump out there anywhere?
Well, I think we get closest to, except for Wesley maybe. And I said, you've driven all the way from California? And I'll say, you must have the greatest gas mileage of any car I've ever known. And they'll kind of look at me and I'll say, you didn't think you'd need more than one tank of gas? We just like to have fun, right? Break that ice. Is there something else? Yeah, sometimes maybe they're playing an angle. How about this? Sometimes the person in need might think you're playing an angle. Do you know one of the most difficult things as a pastor is almost everybody, especially outside church, thinks pastor's got an angle. Even inside church. You let me catch people out that I haven't maybe seen in a while, and I'll say this, hey, I've missed you. Well, pastor, and they're starting to give me the list. Listen, it could, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. That's not what I'm asking for.
Say I miss you.
That's all I'm saying. Because you know what? My life's different when you're not in it. I miss you. But we've been so conditioned. If the pastor sees me and I've missed church for a week or two or more, and he says something to me, well, I have to justify. No, I just miss you. And I mean that, So it can be really tough to recognize needs and then knowing how to respond to needs. And it all starts out of an attitude of love. If you respond to someone in love, and even if you fumble the ball a little bit, people can perceive love. And so it's so important. They fail to see their need. They fail to share their needs. Sometimes sharing in needs is just being there. More often than not. That's an important part. One of the things is praying, asking for the Lord to give you wisdom, and sometimes being able to ask, how can I stand close enough to help, but not so close that I'm smothering? Because we can do that. It's unintentional, but we can. And so sometimes, depending on the circumstances, you can ask, hey, help me stand close enough, but not too close. And people can respond to that pretty well. They fail to see the opportunity. What sometimes will cloud our vision about the opportunity of a need? Time.
We're not on the way to Fort Worth. We got to get on with it here.
I know.
Don't time me up in 2 hours and I'm safe.
Time. Time is a tough thing, isn't it? Because ministry will always cost you time. That's my guarantee to you. Well, Jeff, it is. For me, ministry is almost never convenient. It's very rare that you get to minister Acts 1:8, but it doesn't always happen Acts 1:8. Oh, I just happened to be on the way, right? But time is a tough thing, because to take time here means that you're going to give time from somewhere else. And it's tough. We have a lot of things in our lives. We have a lot of demands on our time. And we may wrestle with, is this person's need worth my time? Because you don't get more of it, right? You don't get more of it. And so, yeah, it could be a challenge. Time, resources. Have you ever kind of shied away because you thought, I just don't know if I have what's needed here? Now, that is perfectly legit. But let me also say this. That's perfectly wrong. Because if you will engage, I promise you'll know someone. I don't know all the answers. So if you ever have a chance and you're sitting around and you have nothing else to do and you want to read a book, one is Don't Eat Spicy Noodles, around it. Tipping Point. In Tipping Point, there's a character in Tipping Point. They talk about characteristics of people. And one of them is a sanguine. I'm sorry, that's not true. A maven. That's their title, maven. Now, the maven is the person. They're the conduit. The maven doesn't know everything. And he doesn't know everyone. But he knows a lot of both of them. He knows his stuff, but he knows people, and he knows resources. And his spiritual gift is bringing the two together. Do you want to guess what your pastor is? I'm a maven. I bring people and opportunities together. Just today, one of the families in our church had a couple of couches, nice couches. They upgraded. And they had tried to sell it online, and they just got beat down by it. And they said, well, just never mind. We are going to bless someone with this furniture. And who'd they call? Not Ghostbusters. They called the Maven, because I know how to connect opportunity to individuals. And it took me 4 hours to get furniture out of their house and into the opportunity. It took me 4 hours. What's that? Oh, yes. Well, yeah. And what's even more funny in that is I made it very, very simply clear. If you have questions about this item, you text this person at this number. And I can't tell you how many people sent me instant messages and all this, and I just said, hey, text the number. You know, it's cool. But, you know, I even got one phone call from one of the families in the church. Do you still have that furniture? I said, well, A, yeah, it's not mine. And B, you need to text the person. You know, anyway, so. But don't be afraid to engage, even if you're not sure if you have the answer to the need. Because sometimes the willingness to help is what they really need. Also, two people with a passionate heart to find an answer, God will provide that. One of the greatest things you can tell someone is, you know, I don't have the answer, but together we'll work to find it. And they will respect you all day long. One of my struggles as your pastor is I don't memorize things well. I tease that I have a small hard drive, and I have to decide what stays on and what's hold. And one of the things I'll just tell you that I'm embarrassed about is I really struggle to memorize anything, much less scripture. Let's just pull the curtain back. I'm embarrassed about it a little bit because I've got friends, and you, man, they're just Bible drilling all over you. And someone walks up to me, now I can tell you concept. I can give you area code. But if we're going to tack down, I'm going to need just a second. And I wrestled with that for years because, like I said, I was embarrassed. But then I realized, you know, the greatest thing I can say is we'll find this together. Because they're not impressed by how much I know. They're more impressed by how much I care. And we'll find it together. And don't be afraid to go, I don't know. listen, if someone walks off from you in a needs engagement or in a spiritual conversation engagement because you say, I don't know, you weren't going anywhere in that conversation anyway.
You can't get any more lost.
No, you can't get him any more lost. And that's the hardest thing, is to walk off. When I was in Jamaica years ago, I had preached on this busy corner, and I gave an invitation, and this Jamaican young man came forward, and he's over here, and I can see my teammates talking to him, and he's just weeping. And I can see them, and they're there like forever. And then, the meeting ends, and they're starting to pack up, and I go over, and I engage with him, and he wants to be saved. And he wants to pray and ask Christ into his life. But every time he gets to the name Jesus, he just seized up. Was it demonic influence? I don't know. But time came, and we had to go. And I sat on the back of that bus looking out the back window, and I watched that young man as we drew further away, and he grew smaller. And to this day, I think of him. I just trust the Lord. Why? Salvation is of the Lord, not of Jimmy Vaughn. But I wonder. And so don't be afraid to engage. Because if you don't know, just be honest. And if they can't respect that, and okay, but you'll be surprised. They failed to give what they wanted themselves to receive. You've heard me say many a time, please don't forget what it was like to be lost. Don't forget what was so valuable to you when you began your spiritual journey, or you came to church, or those things. Think about, what would I want if it were me? If I walked into a church if I walked into Park Street and someone sauntered up to me and the first thing they said to me is, where's your tie? That would have been the last time I went in that building. I promise you. Not that ties are wrong. But when you have people who may be predisposed, you know what? I just want to give people what I would want. I try to help wait staff laugh, because you know what? If I were in that job and I had to put up with people, I'd want someone to help me laugh. This is really funny. One of the things I like to do is, if I have an appointment with someone and I get there early, the wait staff will come over and I'll say, hey, can you do me a favor? And they go, well, sure. I say, I've got a friend coming in just a moment, and I just want to give you a heads up. Please don't stare. Now, you see, they're not going to ask you. And they'll go, oh, okay. I said, well, they're really conscientious about it, so please, just don't stare. Well, my guest shows up. And so for the next 30 minutes or so, I get to watch this wait person, because you know what sin nature does? We want to catch a peek. And I can see them, because they're trying to find what they're not supposed to look at. And they're just, and then we get kind of close to the meal, and I'll tell them, I said,
That really falls into the sicko category.
No, listen to me.
It does.
Listen to me. You can walk into almost any restaurant in this town, and someone on that wait staff is happy to see me. And I'll go, well, I said, thank you for not staring. I said, did you happen to notice? Now, my guest goes, what are you talking about? And so one time I was at Cotton Patch, and this waitress walks up, and I decided, today's the day. And I said, I started, she goes, wait a minute. She goes, I've heard about you. And now here's the thing, is if you're going to be known for something, wouldn't you be rather to be known for that than the guy who cusses and doesn't tip? Because laughter is a good medicine. People may not always remember what you did for them, but they'll remember the way you make them feel. And so just remember to give the golden rule. Good Lord, if we could just get back to that. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. When people walk into this building, ask yourself, what would I want? If I were going to walk into this building for the first time, what would I want?
You can always default to the homeless. They always put the sleep on the floor.
Yeah? Yeah?
Nobody told her to get up and get out of here.
Mm-mm.
Not up there.
We had one of our members, one of our family, fall asleep during church. Now, I'll tell you this, I didn't notice. And they sent me a note apologizing. And they were going through some deep water. And I sent back this note saying, your church home should be a place of rest and security. And if you needed that, I'm glad that you got it.
Well, that one right there, that one
Yeah.
there laid down to the floor.
Yeah. Like I said,
Now,
it's a
step
ma-
over her in the offering.
yeah. It's a MASH unit. Yeah. To be able to come here and to be who you are, where you are, and to have the safety to be that within parameters. You know, it's like people go, what's your dress code? Well, be dressed. But that is such a challenge, okay? Sounds like they're coming. Okay. I'm not done with this one yet. No, they're not? Okay. So let's look. Jesus put everyone on mission. He forgave him. Why? Because it's more important to be forgiven of your sins than healed of your affliction. Because you can still split hell wide open and walk to it. And he put the man on mission. Do you see this? He forgave him. He healed him. And he put him on mission. He said, get up and go. And it's so beautiful. You know, in my heart, I just think there weren't any. I don't think this man goes, well, Jesus, you know, I kind of like it here. Maybe I'll do this. Can you imagine? This man gets up, rolls up his mat or whatever he had to do, tucks it under his arm, and off he went. And I don't think that man had any problem telling people what happened that day. Especially the ones that knew that he went in on the mat. He came out on his feet. He put the man he forgave and healed on mission. That man proclaimed his faith. How? He got up. Now, when they cut my leg open like a tuna fish, and they come to get me, and I think I was still pretty high at the time, and they go, well, Mr. Vaughn, it's time to get up and go for, start walking. Oh, man, that's a great story. You'll have to come back next time. All right, everybody, to our home. Good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. Buddy, have a safe trip down to Tyler tomorrow. Love you guys.